and we're back talking about the big issues that Canada is facing in 2024. We're starting at the federal level and working our way down. Kate, you had said that housing is a major issue. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone. Housing costs are through the roof seemingly across the country. What do you think the Prime Minister needs to do and Cabinet at the federal level to address this issue?
Yeah, well, it's certainly not the federal government's issue alone to address, though they seem to be arriving at what they could have been doing fairly late in the game. There's been a lot of money that's been sent out the door in terms of the Housing Accelerator Fund and other big government programs in order to try and spur development. But the reality is that until we start tying immigration targets to housing starts, we're going to have this chicken and egg where we're bringing in more people than houses we have available. There's probably other options that could be considered around affordability. I think some of the stress tests that have been put in have been helpful in terms of trying to cool things down a little bit. But if interest rates do decline this year, which fingers crossed they will, we might still see that surge ramp back up again because we're bringing in more people than the housing market can sustain. So I think we need to see a lot more collaboration between the federal government, premiers, and municipal leaders in order to try and address this issue. Is there a way we can cut back on some of the red tape, some of the assessments that are needed to get this done? How can we use, for example, government office buildings that are sitting empty as I sit here in Ottawa, repurpose that into housing, or maybe look at that happening elsewhere across the country? We have a lot of space, we have a lot of assets, not all of them are being used. So the government needs to get a little bit more creative in terms of how they can address the housing issue, though it admittedly is not theirs alone to address.
Well, the Prime Minister's residence is quite large. Maybe we could turn it into side by
Yeah,
side, and some people could rent
I
out
don't know if
the
anybody
other
wants
half
to
of
live.
that.
They've got a raccoon problem, I think. So, careful what you wish for.
Well, yeah. I guess we'll leave that up to the bureaucrats in Ottawa to see if that's an option. But in all seriousness, how do we manage this issue? Because we have an issue in this country where we've got a declining ratio when it comes to the number of people working relative to the number of people that are retired. That poses all kinds of financial problems on governments because the people that are working tend to pay more in income taxes, and people once you retire, you tend to earn less and pay less in taxes, but you demand more in terms of healthcare services. So how do we navigate this? I mean, for years we've heard that we need more and more immigrants to help with that ratio and make sure that our nation's services are sustainable. But at the same time, you raise the point, Kate, we don't have the houses. So, Matt, I'll throw it over to you. What do you think the government needs to do at the federal level when it comes to the housing situation?
Well, I think the housing situation in large part, as Kate mentioned, is really something for all levels of government to look at. It's really more a local issue. The housing market is very different across the country, and a lot of the problems are local to do with the red tape. I think one thing that I would bring up about affordability in general, though, is most of the times we don't really want to be looking to the government for solutions. If you look at government attempts to make things more affordable, usually they're failures. And the example I like to give that's really a hot topic right now is childcare. Um, there's a lot of talk about with the government taking over childcare and trying to get it down to $10 a day, right? Well, things don't become more affordable just because, the government is paying for it or we pay more through taxes as opposed to out of pocket. In order for things to be more affordable, in order for us to be able to consume more and afford more, we have to produce more. We need a more productive economy, whether that's producing more houses or producing more goods and services. And usually the way to have a more productive economy is really for the government to take their hands off and let the private sector go and build the things and supply the things that people are really demanding.
So isn't part of Ottawa's solution here, at least in their plan, kind of what you're talking about? They're trying to get cities to have less restrictions on private property so that people can take their house and maybe subdivide it. Isn't that kind of a step towards more freedom?
That is, although, the problem is with that, I'm generally very reluctant to say that a higher level of government needs to be telling a lower level of government what to do. I think the more control you have locally, generally the better outcomes you're going to have. There's more accountability when it's more local. There's more room for experimentation as opposed to one size fits all solution.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for your thoughts on that. When we come back, we'll be talking about the provincial level. We'll see what the big issues are at the provincial level. Thank you.